"Grandma, just stay here in the lounge. We'll fetch you after check-in," they told me. I simply nodded. What else could I do? That's just how you respond when your son gives you a directive in that patient but annoyed tone, the one reserved for the elderly, the confused, or the troublesome. So, I settled into my designated spot, right beside a dusty potted plant, with a crying toddler on one side and a flickering TV blaring the weather on the other. It was 9:15 in the morning. I ended up waiting for 8 hours. I had everything ready 3 days prior, laying out each outfit on the bed, just like I used to for Adam's school trips. We were set for a family getaway to Honolulu. Lisa, my daughter-in-law, had dubbed it a big family vacation. She even insisted on matching t-shirts for everyone. Mine had Vacation Nana splashed across it in bright pink. Not really my style, but I wore it regardless. She wasn't impressed when I brought my own snacks to the airport, rolling her eyes at me. Things started feeling off at security. Lisa kept checking her watch. Adam was uncharacteristically silent, and the kids were glued to their phones. When the TSA agent asked about our seating, Lisa just laughed it off with, "Oh, we'll figure it out later." That was the last time anyone made eye contact with me. Once we passed through security, Lisa gave me that same stiff smile. "Mom, just relax here in the lounge while we check the bags and sort the kids' boarding passes." "You've done enough," she said, patting my arm. It wasn't a gesture of affection. It was more like being brushed aside. So I sat and watched them vanish into the throng. By the way, dear viewer, if you're enjoying this video, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. After an hour of waiting, I got up and wandered over to the window. 2 hours in, I asked the front desk to call out for Adam. Nothing. By the time 4 hours rolled by, I gave up watching the entrance. People around me were a blur, coming and going, flights being called and taking off. The woman sitting opposite had lunch, made a couple of phone calls, and then left. But I stayed put. It wasn't until 5 p.m. that I approached the clerk again. I gave her Adam's full name. She typed it in, paused, and looked at me with a careful expression. They checked into the 1:45 p.m. flight to Honolulu. She said gently, "Ma'am, it's already gone." I nodded, asked her to repeat it, and she did, slowly, with kindness in her voice. I remember that clearly. So that was it. They boarded without me. This wasn't an oversight. I knew Adam too well to believe otherwise. Carelessness was not his style. I retreated to the restroom, locked myself in a stall, and just sat there, not to cry, but to be somewhere private, away from questions about how I was doing. When I came out, the airport was winding down for the evening. The hustle and bustle had eased. I wandered over to the departure screen, taking in the options like someone skimming a menu. And there it was, Portland, 7:35 p.m. I don't know what drew me to Portland. Maybe because it had been ages since I'd been there. Maybe because it's where I learned to ride a bike. Or maybe because it was the farthest place from Hawaii. I approached the counter. "1 ticket to Portland, please," I said. "By the way, dear viewer, if you're enjoying this video, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel." Tonight, she paused, caught in a moment of indecision. Round trip? No, just a one-way ticket. I used my own card, from my own account, the one Adam hadn't a clue about. I'd kept it open since before his wedding. There was just enough in there for the fare, a motel, and maybe a fresh start. That's all I needed. I shut off my phone. No messages, No missed calls. Not surprising. Boarding was uneventful. No one questioned why I was alone. No one noticed my shirt. I ditched it in a trash can on my way to the gate. As the plane lifted, I watched the city lights vanish below. 8 hours ago, I thought I was heading to paradise. Funny how quickly that changed. But now, I was headed somewhere real, where they couldn't catch up to me. I touched down in Portland just after 10 neos. The airport felt quieter, smaller than I remembered. Or maybe it was just me, feeling smaller under the weight of a day like no other. I wandered through the terminal at my own pace, not because of age, but because the rush was finally gone. There was no one waiting for me, and for the first time, that felt liberating. Outside, the air was crisp and damp, with a hint of recent rain. It smelled of concrete and pine. I paused under the awning to breathe it in, then found a bench and sat with my carry-on, the very one Adam had teased for being old-fashioned. It was a brown leather bag, frayed at the corners, a gift from Derek for our 25th anniversary. We'd love to hear from you. Let us know in the comments what city you're watching from. He would have chuckled at today's events, a deep, knowing chuckle that seemed to say, "Well, darling, what did you expect?" Honestly, I hadn't seen this coming, but I can't say I was shocked either. As I flipped open my wallet, there were 2 cards, my ID, $76 in cash, and a folded piece of paper with an address I hadn't thought about in half a century. 1849 Quinn Street. That was my first home after I married Derek. Does it still stand? I have no clue why I kept that address with me, but there it was. So, I hailed a cab. The driver was silent, which was a relief. I gave him the address of a cheap motel I'd found before leaving Wilmington, just in case I needed it. Once there, I paid without hesitation, got my key, and trudged up the narrow stairs to the second floor. Room 207. The hallway had that familiar scent of cleaning fluid mixed with old stories. Inside, the room was tiny but tidy, just a bed, a chair, and a TV firmly attached to the wall. I rinsed my face in the sink, then lay on the bed fully dressed, feeling the scratchy blanket against my skin. I fell into a dreamless sleep. The next morning, I found myself standing by the window, watching a woman in a pink robe walk her dog. She seemed to be my age, perhaps with a bit more strength in her stride. I brewed some coffee in the little machine on the nightstand and settled into the stiff chair by the window, sipping slowly. No calls, no texts. I didn't even check. It hit me that I had nowhere to be, and that realization was oddly unsettling. For so many years, my time was always claimed by others. By the way, dear viewer, if you're enjoying this video, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. To Adam, to Derek, to the grandkids, even to those PTA meetings I ditched 2 decades ago, my time was finally mine again. Around 9, I checked out of the motel and took a stroll around the neighborhood. My legs were sore. My hip had a little grumble, but I kept moving. Popped into a corner bakery and grabbed a scone. The cashier smiled as I handed her exact change. "Not from around here, are you?" she asked. "Used to be, ages ago," I replied. "Well, welcome back," she said. I wasn't sure if I was truly back or even belonged anywhere, but her words felt comforting. I asked about housing listings, and she gestured towards a corkboard by the door. It was covered in notes: dog walking, used bikes, music lessons, and a room for rent. The last one stood out: private room, shared kitchen, quiet lady only, Safe house, close to the bus line, no drama. $400 a month. Call Joyce. The handwriting was blocky and no nonsense, just like the ad. I snapped a photo of the number. By noon, I had wandered a couple more blocks and found a sunny park bench. I dialed the number. The voice that answered was raspy, a bit wary. Yes? I'm calling about the room, I said. There was a long pause. How old are you? 77, I answered. Are you tidy? Yes. No boyfriends, right? I laughed. Not in a long time. All right, she said. Come by at 4, 2185 East Stafford. Bring cash for the first week. Then she hung up, scribbled the address on a napkin. By the way, dear viewer, if you're enjoying this video, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. By 4 o'clock, I found myself standing in front of an old blue house with a porch that had seen better days. The wind chime tinkled like spoons clinking together in the breeze. Joyce appeared at the door, a cigarette in one hand and a cat weaving between her feet. You're the old lady? She quipped. Guess I am, I replied as she stepped aside. Well, come on in. Let's see if we can stand each other. Her home carried the scent of lavender mixed with fried onions, comforting, like a place where real meals were made without worrying over the occasional grease spot. She guided me through a narrow hallway lined with stacks of books and magazines, leading to a cozy sitting room where the TV was quietly on mute. A crocheted blanket rested neatly on the sofa's arm. The room's upstairs, she mentioned, gesturing with her cigarette. I followed her up the creaky staircase, my hand gliding along the banister. The upper hallway was dimmer, with paint that had begun to chip away. She opened the door to a room at the end. This was it. It wasn't large, just a twin bed, a nightstand, and a dresser that had definitely seen better days. But the window was wide, and warm afternoon light streamed in, as if promising a new beginning. There was even a small desk with a well-loved chair. It's fine, I said. What's the rent again? $400 a month, but I take it weekly, she replied. $100 a week. Cash only. No checks, no cards, and no sob stories. She gave me a once-over. You don't seem like the sob story type. No, not anymore, I assured her. She nodded, as if I'd passed some invisible test. Kitchens shared, bathrooms down the hall. By the way, dear viewer, if you're enjoying this video, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. No unexpected visitors. I prefer peace and quiet. If you stir up any trouble, you'll be shown the door. Understand? Perfectly. She handed me a key. You can crash here tonight, but you'll need to cover the first week's rent. I pulled out the envelope from my coat pocket, extracting $520 bills. She tucked them away without even counting. Hungry? She asked. I could eat, I replied. Joyce whipped up some grilled cheese sandwiches and served tomato soup straight from the pan. We sat at the tiny kitchen table beneath a faded ceiling fan. Thankfully, she didn't pry. People often want answers before you're ready to give them. I hate eating alone, she commented. I totally got that. After our meal, I settled into my small room. I had only brought along 3 outfits, a toothbrush, my meds, and an unfinished paperback. I placed everything neatly in the dresser, folding each piece like it mattered. Maybe it did. That night, I lay on the narrow bed, listening to the unfamiliar house sounds, the steady tick of a wall clock, creaky floorboards, Joyce's soft murmurs to her cat. No calls, no texts. I kept the phone off. By morning, I brewed coffee, before Joyce even stirred. The kitchen felt oddly more like home than my actual one, perhaps because it wasn't filled with people who only remembered me when they needed something. By day 3, I was exploring the neighborhood. Just 2 blocks away, I stumbled upon a quaint corner cafe with a chalkboard sign out front, "Help Wanted." By the way, dear viewer, if you're enjoying this video, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Morning shift available. Apply within. I paused, contemplating the sign. It had been 15 years since my last job, though early mornings and brewing coffee were old friends of mine. Inside, the cafe was humble, with 3 booths, a counter, and a handful of bar stools topped with cracked red cushions. A young woman was there, cleaning the counter, apron tied around her waist. "Are you hiring?" I inquired. She looked up, a bit taken aback. "You're interested in applying?" she asked. "Yes," I replied. She called to someone in the back, and out came a woman with a no-nonsense look, her messy bun complementing her name tag, Heather. "Got any experience?" she inquired. "Well, I've juggled raising 3 kids and managing a household for half a century. I can brew coffee, serve food, and I don't take sick days." She gave me a long, measuring look before finally shrugging. "Okay, trial shift tomorrow, 6 to 11. Show me what you've got, and we'll see." That evening, I pressed my only decent blouse, the one that still kept a crease, and went to bed early, staring at the ceiling. Less than a week had passed since the airport, since I'd been abandoned like an unclaimed suitcase. But things were changing. I was moving forward, working, starting anew. No one else needed to know, at least not yet. This new life, unexpected and quiet, was mine to shape. As I arrived at the cafe at 5:45, the air was a mix of burnt toast and old dreams. Early as ever, I found the front door still locked. A man with thick glasses and a flour-dusted apron opened it wordlessly, grunting something that might have been a greeting, before returning to the kitchen. By the way, dear viewer, if you're enjoying this video, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Heather showed up about 10 minutes later, juggling a travel mug and keys dangling from a bright rainbow lanyard. Without much fanfare, she unlocked the register and tossed me an apron. Hair tied back, no perfume. Keep the cups filled up before anyone has to ask. And remember, if a tip's under $1, that's on you, not them. I simply nodded. She gave me a once-over. Then her expression softened a bit. "You nervous?" she asked. "Nah," I replied. "At 77, I've buried a husband, raised a son who's forgotten my birthday 3 years straight, and lived through 5 colonoscopies. This is just coffee." Heather let out a chuckle. "Fair enough." By 7, the regulars started rolling in. Contractors, early birds, and nurses just coming off the night shift. My pace was slow, but steady. I kept track of orders, poured coffee smoothly, and offered just the right amount of smiles. By 9, I found my groove. One of the customers asked with a warm smile, "Where'd they dig you up?" "Same place they find all the good stuff," I replied. "The back shelf under a blanket." He chuckled and left a generous $5 tip. Heather observed quietly, and after the breakfast rush eased, she handed me a clean towel to wipe down the counters. We wrapped up by 11. She settled in with another cup of coffee and gestured to the stool beside her. "Have a seat," she said. "You did fine, just fine. You'll get better." She took a sip. "You're hired." It's minimum wage, plus tips, no health insurance, but you'll have steady work. I'll give you all the weekday mornings. By the way, dear viewer, if you're enjoying this video, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Is that enough for you? More than enough. We both fell into a quiet pause. Do you have kids? She asked, glancing at me sideways. I did, I replied. She waited for more. They're traveling, I added. She nodded knowingly. They always are. As I made my way back to Joyce's, my feet ached, but there was a strange lightness in my step. Joyce was in the garden, tugging at weeds while wearing a worn-out shirt that read, "Don't talk to me before coffee." "Did you get the job?" she called, eyes still fixed on her task. "I did," I replied. "See, I told you they need folks who show up." That evening, we dined on frozen pot pies and watched the news on mute. Franklin, the cat, whose name I'd learned, snuggled between us. During a commercial, Joyce asked, "Are you planning to stay long?" "Not sure," I said. "You're welcome to, as long as you pay rent and don't monopolize the remote." "I'm not much of a remote person," I chuckled. She grinned and handed me the last cookie. Later, I perched on the edge of my bed, phone in hand. It hadn't been on in days. I thought about checking messages, seeing if Adam had noticed my absence. But I didn't. Instead, I picked up an old paperback I'd brought along and started from page 1. The desk lamp cast a soft, warm glow on the walls. Rain pattered gently on the window. Inside, I wasn't an afterthought or a burden. I was simply a woman with her own room, a job, a meal, and a quiet place to sit. And that felt like enough. When Friday rolled around, I received my first paycheck. After taxes, it was just $74.26. Heather handed it to me in a slim envelope as I wrapped up my shift. By the way, dear viewer, if you're enjoying this video, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. "Cash it or hang it on the wall," she suggested with a grin. I chuckled and tucked it into my coat pocket. Having money that was solely mine, that was new. For so long, every cent I earned was spent elsewhere. Groceries for Adam's folks, birthday gifts that went unacknowledged, co-payments for appointments I had to find my own way to. But this time, it was different. I had earned this, standing on my own, apron tied tight, hands steady. I made my way to the bank on 3rd Street and cashed the check. The young teller gave me a look, as if unsure I knew what I was doing. "I'd like 10s and 5s, please. The rest in 1s, I requested. When she passed me the bills, I folded them carefully and placed them in my wallet. I left the bank with a spring in my step and my head held high. Across the street, there was a second-hand clothing store. Not much to look at, just a narrow window with a cluttered display and a small sign announcing, "Fall specials, 20% off coats." I pushed open the door and the bell chimed gently. A young girl, barely out of high school, glanced up from behind the counter and flashed a genuine smile. "Looking for anything special?" she asked. "Yes," I replied. "Something that makes me feel like myself again." She didn't laugh, just nodded and began showing me through the racks. I picked out a navy wool coat with a subtle herringbone pattern and roomy pockets. It wasn't new, but it was warm, solid, and well-crafted. I tried it on, and it fit as if it had been waiting just for me. By the way, dear viewer, if you're enjoying this video, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. I handed over the cash, and the young woman wrapped it up in tissue, like she was giving me a present. "You're looking sharp," she complimented. "Thanks," I said. "I feel sharp." That evening, I walked home wearing that coat. The chill in the air made it the perfect excuse to show it off. Joyce was out on the porch with Franklin, sipping wine from a coffee mug. "Where have you been?" she asked. "Picked up a coat," I replied. She whistled approvingly. "Look at you, all fancy. Only on Fridays, though." We headed inside and shared a can of chili. The heater hummed as if it was clearing its throat, and the floor groaned under Joyce's heavy slippers. It was the kind of noise you find reassuring in old houses, like the familiar sounds of a well-worn life. Later, I stood in front of the mirror in my tiny room, turning left and right, running my hand over the coat's fabric. It wasn't just a piece of clothing. It was a testament. I was still here, still standing, still making choices just for me. For once, nobody else had a say. My phone remained off since I landed, and I didn't miss it. Sure, I missed some people, but not those who'd abandon you by a plastic plant at the airport without a backward glance. Mornings were for work, afternoons for walking, and evenings I'd spend reading or listening to Joyce's spirited takes on city politics. Every so often, I treated myself to something small, a pair of wool socks, a crossword puzzle book, or some real tea, instead of the dusty bags Joyce kept in a tin above the fridge. Slowly, I was realizing there was a life waiting here. By the way, dear viewer, if you're enjoying this video, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. It wasn't a lavish place, but it was mine, and that was enough. By the time the second week rolled around, my feet started feeling better. My hands got back into the swing of balancing plates with ease, and I could clear a four-top table in no time at all. Heather remained pretty quiet, but one morning, she slid a foil-wrapped cinnamon roll my way. "Too many," she mumbled as she pushed it across the counter. That was her way of letting me know I was part of the crew. I found my groove. Mondays through Fridays, I handled the morning shifts. Saturdays were for exploring new neighborhoods on foot, and Sundays were my days to simply relax. Joyce wasn't one to hover or question my comings and goings. She just grunt when I walked in and pour me a drink from a box. One evening, she came back with a pile of mail. "There's something for you." She tossed an envelope my way. No return address, just my name in that familiar looping script. I paused, took a moment, and then opened it up. Inside was a piece of lined paper that simply read, "Grandma, where are you?" I didn't need to see a signature. I recognized the handwriting instantly. It was from Kieran, my eldest grandchild. The only one who'd come by just because, the one who spent an afternoon building and painting a birdhouse with me, declaring it the coolest spot in the yard. The letter was brief, just a few lines saying, "Dad and Lisa are freaking out. They said you've gone missing. No one's heard from you. I check every day. I miss you. We'd love to hear from you. Let us know in the comments what city you're watching from. Let me know you're all right, okay?" A phone number was scrawled at the bottom, his new number. I sat there, letter on my lap, reading it twice. Then I gently folded it and tucked it away in my nightstand drawer. I didn't make the call, not yet, but something inside me felt a bit softer. The next day, while I was counting change at the cafe register, Heather looked up and said, "You've got a visitor." I turned around to see an elderly man in a gray windbreaker, standing near the door, squinting at the menu as if it were in another language. He seemed to be in his early 80s, neatly dressed, clean-shaven, but a little wobbly on his feet. When he caught sight of me, he smiled warmly. "Are you the one who knows how to make real coffee?" he asked. I poured him a cup and placed it in front of him. "Cream and sugar?" I offered. "Just cream, 2 splashes," he replied. We didn't say much at first. He sipped slowly, folded the newspaper someone had left behind, and tipped more generously than necessary. He returned the next day, and the day after that. By Thursday, I found out his name was Arthur. He was widowed with 2 sons, one living in Boston, the other in Arizona. We didn't discuss them much. Instead, we talked about birds. He liked cardinals. I preferred finches, and we both agreed that crows were way smarter than people gave them credit for. On Friday, Arthur brought in a picture of his wife. They'd been married 46 years, he said. "She made better coffee than this, but you come close." I smiled and refilled his cup. Later that evening, I stood by my window, watching the wind dance through the leaves outside. By the way, dear viewer, if you're enjoying this video, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. I pictured Arthur's hands cradling the mug, Kieran's letter lying there, and that navy coat draped over my door. My world had its empty spaces, its quiet pangs that crept in during the night. Yet, something new was forming. It wasn't about going back to what I'd lost. It was about discovering something unexpected. This wasn't about forgiving. This was about finding freedom. I kept my phone switched off, nestled in the bottom drawer of my nightstand, wrapped carefully in a clean handkerchief, as if it were something sacred, or perhaps dangerous. I wasn't sure which. Joyce never pried. That wasn't her way. But as we sat one evening, shelling peas in the kitchen, she casually asked, "Are you hiding or healing?" I glanced up from the colander. "Both," I replied. She nodded, then returned to her task. 3 weeks had passed since the airport, since sitting in that lounge chair with the broken armrest, since Adam handed me a flimsy plastic water bottle before vanishing. Not a single call had come through. No one had tried to track me down, except for Kieran. Occasionally, I'd unfold his letter, its creases softening with time. His handwriting reminded me of his mother's, with those familiar long loops and the same nervous tilt to the right. But I still didn't call. It wasn't about punishment, nor was I being unkind. I just wasn't ready to reopen doors they had shut so easily. It's a longer journey back from silence than the rapid fall into it. What's your take on this? Share your reaction in the comments below. At the cafe, Heather wasn't much of a talker, but she had this habit of keeping the crossword section from the morning paper just for me. "You seem like the type who finishes what they start," she noted. Meanwhile, Arthur had become a regular fixture, strolling in at precisely 9:10 every day, always sporting that familiar gray jacket. He didn't exactly flirt, but he lingered longer with each visit, sharing more stories and asking questions, not the prying kind, just genuinely interested. One morning he surprised me with, "Why's a woman like you working the breakfast shift here?" I glanced up from the coffee pot, replying, "Because someone once left me stranded at an airport lounge like unwanted luggage." He blinked, taken aback. "I'm sorry," he said, and he truly was. "Don't be. I caught a better flight," I replied, drawing a gentle laugh from him. As he reached for his cup, he hesitated. "Ever think of calling them?" he asked. "Every day," I admitted. "And every day I don't." He didn't push, just nodded and sipped his coffee. When I got home that afternoon, Joyce was busy in the backyard, spreading mulch. "Any news?" she asked without looking up. "No," I replied. But then, feeling the need to vocalize it, I added, "But I think they know I'm gone now." That evening, I finally turned my phone back on. It buzzed incessantly like a trapped fly, showing 32 missed calls and 18 messages. The earliest was a frantic voicemail from Lisa, dated the day of the flight. "Martha, we thought you were in the bathroom. Please call us. We're boarding." A blatant lie. The rest were similar, with Adam's voice sounding cold and tense. By the way, dear viewer, if you're enjoying this video, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. "Hey, Mom, where are you? This isn't funny anymore." "Okay, do what you want." I didn't reply. I just wasn't ready. But I did save Kieran's number. That was a start. The next day, my phone rang. I watched his name flashing on the screen. For the first time, I picked up and said, "Grandma." His voice wavered, unsure if I'd really talk. "I'm here, sweetheart." A long pause followed. Then he said, "You're okay. I'm more than okay. Where are you?" "Somewhere peaceful. Somewhere I chose." He didn't plead or try to guilt me. He simply said, "I'm glad you're safe. I miss you. I miss you too." That was all I needed for now. No long explanations or apologies, just the comforting voice of someone who still cared. Not because I baked cakes or babysat, because I mattered. That gentle, heartfelt sound meant more to me than any plane ticket ever could. By the 4th week, I had memorized the path from the cafe to the corner pharmacy, the lilac scent from Joyce's neighbor's garden, and the sound of Arthur's tap on the cafe window when I forgot his cream. Life wasn't thrilling, but it felt complete. It had a rhythm, a calmness. Then, on a rainy Tuesday, a letter arrived. Joyce slid it across the kitchen table without a word. The return address was Wilmington, my old home. The handwriting was familiar, like a bruise that aches just enough to remind you it's there. Adam. The envelope was thick, holding 6 pages of neatly written anger. No greeting. By the way, dear viewer, if you're enjoying this video, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. "I can't believe you did this." He accused me of vanishing, stirring up drama by not being there, and putting the family through stress on their vacation. He wrote that Lisa cried every night. The kids were clueless. Was that fair to them? Not a peep about the airport lounge. No mention of asking me to wait. Nothing about the 8-hour delay. Just a dramatic display of hurt, twisting the facts. He wrapped up with, "We're open to talking, but only if you're ready to be reasonable." Reasonable. Like years of babysitting, cooking, paying their bills, and being told where to sit and when to be quiet were unreasonable. Like leaving was a tantrum, not a choice. I folded the letter and slid it back into the envelope. Joyce didn't ask what it said. She just handed me a plate of toast and nodded to the window. "Storm's coming," she noted, and it was. The next morning, Kieran called again. "Dad wrote you, didn't he?" "Yeah, he did." "Are you going to reply?" I paused, then said, "No, not yet. Maybe not ever." Kieran didn't push. "I understand." He mentioned starting a part-time job at a bookstore. "Low pay," he said, "but I enjoy it. Books don't yell at you. We shared a warm laugh. "You sound different," he remarked at the end of the call. "Different how?" "Lighter." That night, I grabbed Adam's letter, struck a match, and fed it to the flame in the sink, bit by bit. Joyce didn't bat an eye. "I would have used the fire pit," she said. "It's more satisfying." By the way, dear viewer, if you're enjoying this video, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. The next morning at the cafe, Heather pulled me aside and asked, "Want an extra shift this weekend? Saturday brunch is madness." Before I even had time to think, I agreed. It wasn't just about needing the money. It was the satisfaction of a busy day that I craved. The ache in my feet felt genuine. Arthur strolled in late, now sporting a cane. It wasn't anything dramatic, just a reminder of age creeping in, the knees, the back, and that stubborn pride. "Burn the place down yet?" he teased, settling into his usual spot. "Not today," I replied, pouring his coffee. He took a sip and paused. "Ever think about going back to Wilmington? Back to any of it?" As I wiped the counter, I shook my head. "No, not once." He nodded knowingly. "Then maybe you finally arrived." That evening, Joyce showed up unexpectedly with a flyer in hand. "There's a potluck at the community center next week. We should go," she suggested. I quirked an eyebrow. "You? At potlucks?" She smirked. "I go for the free food and the gossip." I chuckled. "I'll make my lemon squares." "Great. I'll pretend I baked them," she grinned. The days were growing shorter, with dusk wrapping around the house like an old quilt. I made tea and settled by the window with my crossword book, Franklin purring at my feet. My coat hung by the door, warm and ready. For the first time in years, I wasn't waiting for life to begin again. It had quietly started on its own, and it was all mine. By the way, dear viewer, if you're enjoying this video, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Saturday brunch at the cafe was pure chaos. By 8 a.m., the line was already snaking out the door. The coffee machine grumbled as if it had opinions of its own, while the pancake griddle sizzled with determination. In the midst of it all was Heather, navigating the chaos like a seasoned commander, issuing orders, flipping order slips, and dropping spoons into syrup jars with a swift, practiced hand. "Eggs over hard for booth 3, she called out, her voice slicing through the din. I stayed unfazed. "Refill on 6, she noted, but I was already on it. By 10 o'clock, my feet felt like they were made of stone, but my mind was surprisingly clear. There's an odd solace in serving others. You stop dwelling on your own troubles because you're caught up in everyone else's, and sometimes that brings a strange kind of peace. Arthur wasn't around. Saturdays weren't his shifts, but while wiping down the corner booth, something outside stole my breath. A face at the window, younger than Arthur, with a sharper jawline. Yet those eyes, I recognized them. It was Lisa. She lingered for just a moment, her coat too fancy for the drizzle, her expression unreadable. Then she turned and left. I didn't mention it to Heather. After my shift, I counted my tips and made my way home through sidewalks glistening with leftover rain. My coat retained the warmth of the day's hustle, and for once, my hands were steady. At home, Joyce was out. A note on the fridge read, "Library talk on bees, back by 7. Don't wait on dinner unless you're cooking." I made myself some soup anyway. That night, I turned my phone back on and found 3 new voicemails. The first was from Lisa. "We saw someone who looked like you, Please call us. Adam's worried. The second was Adam. We'd love to hear from you. Let us know in the comments what city you're watching from. If this is about teaching us a lesson, it's overdone. Enough already. The third one, Kieran. Hi, Grandma. I think Mom's in town. She's been acting strange all day. If something's up, be careful, okay? I stared at the screen. It's funny how the past sneaks up on you just when you're not looking. That night, I tossed and turned. Every creak of the floorboards and groan from the old pipes seemed louder than ever, but nothing happened. Sunday slipped by quietly. Then, on Monday, Arthur was back. He settled onto his stool, with Kane draped over the backrest. Busy weekend? He asked. I chuckled, eventful. He stirred his coffee, glancing over. Something on your mind? Yes, but not enough to spoil this moment. He smiled, and we sat there in silence, the comfortable kind that comes when two people have seen enough of life. After work, I joined Joyce on the porch. We wrapped ourselves in old sweaters and watched the clouds drift by. I think they're looking for me, I said. Figured, she replied. No questions about my plans, no advice, just a gentle nudge, passing me the wine mug. Still hiding or healing? She asked. Healing, I replied. But the hiding was nice while it lasted. She raised her mug. To those who stop asking for permission. I tapped mine against hers gently. Later that night, I sat down to write a letter. Not to Adam, not to Lisa, but to Kieran. A real letter, written with pen on thick paper. I told him I was safe, that I'd built a new life, and that I wasn't angry anymore, just done with waiting. I told him he was the only one who never made me feel like a burden. I mentioned to him that he could drop by someday, but only if he came solo. So, on a Thursday, this envelope showed up from Wilmington. Unlike the usual notes from Adam or Lisa, this was different. A bulky manila folder, all firm and official looking, with a return address from a regional news outlet I knew from back in the day. Joyce handed it to me, her eyebrows shooting up. Got yourself some admirers now, she teased. I kept quiet, carefully tearing it open as I stood by the kitchen counter. Inside was a printout of a newspaper article, meticulously folded into thirds. The front page of the community section, no less. The headline jumped out, Missing Matriarch, Family Speaks Out on Grandmother's Disappearance. And there I was, in a photo from some family gathering ages ago, holding a pie dish and grinning without showing my teeth. Adam had a quote in there. We're deeply worried, he apparently said. She vanished without a word. We just want her safe. If anyone sees her, please let us know. Lisa chimed in too. She's vulnerable. We fear something happened. She's not the type to do something like this. I couldn't help it. I laughed out loud, a sharp bark that even caught me off guard. Not the type, huh? Joyce leaned over my shoulder, skimming through the lines. They actually called you vulnerable, she noted. I nodded. You should sue them for underestimating you, she joked. They'll have to get in line, I replied. The whole thing felt obscene, this charade of concern, pretending innocence, as if I had just wandered into traffic, not like I had been packed away, like luggage and ditched. Heather saw the article too. What's your take on this? Share your reaction in the comments below. Someone accidentally left it on the cafe counter during the morning rush. She handed it to me and softly asked, You doing all right? I brushed it off with a casual, Never been better. I didn't keep the clipping for sentimental reasons, but because it was evidence that people start worrying only when they can't use you anymore. Later that evening, I was sitting with Arthur in our usual window booth. He didn't mention the article. Instead, he passed me a small brown paper bag. Saw this and thought of you, Nicole, he said. Inside was a tiny, hand-painted magnet shaped like a birdhouse. It's silly, he quickly added. Just something you once said reminded me. I grinned. Not silly at all. It's perfect. When I got home, I placed it on the fridge with the same hand that had packed Adam's lunch for school countless times, paid his rent more than once, and would never again reach out for more hurt. I didn't mention the magnet to Joyce. Some things are just for you. I did tell her, though, that I wanted to bring something to the potluck after all. Lemon squares? She suggested. No, I replied, something even better. The next day, I dug out my old recipe box, the one I held on to, even after selling nearly everything else. Inside, I found a card in Derek's handwriting from our first Thanksgiving together. Martha's sweet potato cake, legendary for making people behave. So I baked. The house brimmed with the warm scent of cinnamon and nostalgia. Joyce danced around the kitchen in cozy socks, while Franklin meowed like he was promised a slice. By the way, dear viewer, if you're enjoying this video, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. As we arrived at the community center with our cakes in tow, a woman at the entrance took a deep breath and exclaimed, "What is that heavenly aroma?" Before I could respond, Joyce chimed in with a grin. That's the scent of new beginnings. We both burst out laughing, and in that moment, I felt grounded and alive. Meanwhile, Adam and Lisa were probably scratching their heads, trying to figure out how they lost touch with the woman they barely knew. Let them ponder. The potluck was set in a church basement, carrying the faint scent of worn hymnals and pine. The walls were lined with folding tables, each draped in plastic cloths, and a jumble of dishes. A no-nonsense woman with a gray braid and a clipboard orchestrated the setup like a seasoned commander. Joyce and I arrived a bit early, her arms carefully cradling our cakes, while I juggled the utensils and napkins. It had been ages since I walked into a room full of strangers and felt perfectly at ease. Go grab us a table, Joyce instructed. I'll take care of the intros. I found myself by the coffee station, savoring the warmth of a paper cup in my hands. Slowly, folks trickled in, mostly women wrapped in cozy sweaters and practical shoes, along with a few men who hovered around the food as if it might vanish in an instant. Suddenly, someone tapped my shoulder. "Did you bring the sweet potato cake?" Turning around, I saw a woman with kind eyes and a hearty presence smiling at me. "I did," I replied. "Bless your heart," she said. "I was worried Clara Porter would show up with her dump cake again. Yours smells like someone still remembers the true taste of the holidays." I laughed and said, "Well, I've been known to whip up something good under pressure. By the way, dear viewer, if you're enjoying this video, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel." The evening had that familiar slow buzz of a small get-together, filled with people chatting over folding chairs and passing dishes down long tables. Laughter burst out like tiny fireworks. My cake vanished before anyone finished saying grace, and someone wanted my recipe. That's top secret, I teased. Halfway through, Joyce introduced me to Marcia, a retired school librarian, and Terry, who used to drive buses. They invited us to their monthly trivia night, but I said I'd join if the questions were strictly pre-1990s. Later, as we dug into dessert, Joyce leaned in and said, "You look pretty pleased with yourself." I grinned. I am. It felt great to be part of something where I didn't need to prove myself first. When we got home, we kicked off our shoes and collapsed onto the couch. Franklin cozied up on my lap, warm and snug. Joyce turned to me. "You know they're going to show up, right?" I stayed silent. She repeated, softer this time. "Sooner or later." I nodded. I knew. The letter, the article, Lisa's face outside the cafe, they were all warnings, and I was tired of staying on edge. The next morning, a man in a suit stood outside the cafe. He waited until my shift ended, then came in, took off his sunglasses, and asked, "Are you Mrs. Martha Harlow?" His tone was too formal, too cautious. "I am," I replied. "I'm Derek Sorensen. I represent Adam and Lisa Harlow. They've asked me to discuss your well-being and assets." I blinked. "My well-being is just fine," I said. By the way, dear viewer, if you're enjoying this video, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. "My assets, that's none of your concern," I replied, watching him squirm uncomfortably. "Mrs. Harlow, they're really worried," he insisted. "They want to make sure you're safe and maybe talk about what comes next." Calmly, I folded my apron and set it down on the counter. "Tell Adam and Lisa I'm not some pet they forgot to pick up. There are no next steps unless I decide to take them." He hesitated, clearing his throat. "If you'd just consider—" "I've done enough considering," I interrupted, brushing past him and stepping outside, leaving him blinking in the sunlight. Arthur was waiting for me, and he didn't look like he was there for the coffee. "Everything okay?" he asked. "Yes," I assured him, determined not to let anyone make me doubt it. That night, I drafted one more letter, but it wasn't for Kieran. This time, it was for Lisa. Just 3 lines. "I know what you did. I know what you didn't say. I'm not angry. I'm not coming back. Take care of your own life now. I finally started mine." The next morning, I mailed it, using a stamp with a finch on it, one of those birds that sings, even when it's cold. I braced myself for silence, or maybe another letter from Adam full of thinly veiled demands disguised as concern. What caught me off guard was Lisa showing up in person. It was a dull Thursday afternoon when Heather first noticed her, a woman in a sharp coat, awkwardly positioned by the pastry case, pretending to study the chalkboard menu. She seemed out of place, polished, yet tense. I didn't approach her. Instead, I kept busy, refilling sugar caddies and wiping down the counter, letting her wait it out. When she finally stepped up, her voice was barely above a whisper. "Martha." I turned around slowly. "Lisa." The cafe was almost deserted, just Arthur in the corner booth and a young couple murmuring over their muffins. "Can we talk?" she asked. "You're talking now?" I replied, noting her flinch. Privately, I gestured toward the back. "That booth's open." She slid into the seat across from me, like she was bracing for a storm. "I wasn't expecting Adam to send someone," she said. "The lawyer wasn't my idea." "No," I replied, but leaving me alone in an airport lounge was. Her eyes, which might have been filled with genuine emotion, or maybe just putting on a show, met mine. "We panicked," she explained. The flight was boarding. The kids were restless. We thought you were right behind us. I raised an eyebrow. 8 hours, Lisa. 8 hours. No call, no check-in, not even a simple inquiry at the gate. She looked down at her neatly manicured hands, as always. I never thought you'd stay behind. I didn't. But you did. The silence between us was as tense as a drawn bowstring. Then she reached into her purse and handed me an envelope. I don't want anything from you, she said. But Kieran, he's having a tough time. He misses you. Adam's angry, but Kieran, he's different. I took the envelope, not because I cared about its contents, but to deny her the satisfaction of a flat-out refusal. He doesn't need a middleman, I said. He knows how to reach me. Lisa nodded. He might. Finally, she looked up, not the polished hostess who smoothed over dinner party mishaps and smiled through clenched teeth. What's your take on this? Share your reaction in the comments below. Feeling more worn out than anything, she spoke softly. I wasn't trying to take your place, she said. I just needed to stop feeling like your shadow was everywhere. That was the most genuine thing she'd ever told me. I stood up. I'm not just your shadow, Lisa. I'm my own person, and I finally remembered how to live as one. She walked out, leaving her coffee untouched. That evening, Joyce and I were cozied up on the porch, bundled in blankets, with the air rich with the smell of rain and wood smoke. She really said that? Joyce asked. I nodded. And that's it. She spoke her mind, and so did I. Are you planning on seeing them? No, I replied. Joyce took a sip of her tea. What about the boy? Kieran? I grinned. He's different. I'll see him. But in my own time. Later, I opened an envelope to find a photo of Kieran as a child, perched on my hip in the garden, both of us laughing. Behind it was a note in his handwriting, just 5 words. I remember. I always remembered. Those words were enough to anchor my week. The next morning, as I watched the kettle boil, I pondered the concept of cut, not in a violent way, but like a gentle final release of a string. I'd spent so long tethered to people who assumed I'd never break away, but I had. And each day I didn't return, the hold loosened further. That afternoon, I went to the bank, where the teller who cashed my first paycheck was still there. Her name was Mari, always with purple nail polish and a look of surprise at being indoors. By the way, dear viewer, if you're enjoying this video, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. I'd like to make a transfer, I mentioned, sliding my ID across the counter. Of course, she replied. From which account? I gave her the number of the small account I had set up with my old card, the one I used for groceries back when Derek was around, and the one Adam never knew about. And who's the lucky recipient? I smiled. Kieran Harlow. I handed over the routing details from his note. It's not a lot, I said. Just a little something for books, groceries, or maybe a getaway if he needs one. Mari typed away on her keyboard. You're the first I've seen in ages to send money with no strings attached. That's exactly the idea. It felt good. It wasn't about revenge, more like a sharper sense of closure. As I stepped out of the bank into the fresh air, I buttoned my coat and turned up the collar. The wind didn't sting. It was more of a gentle nudge, like a reminder. At home, Joyce was glued to game shows. You look smug again, she remarked without looking up more. I made a decision, I said. Anyone die? She teased. Not yet, I replied with a grin. That night, I penned one last letter, Not to the family, but to the lawyer, Derek Sorensen. I kept it straightforward. To whom it may concern, there is no need for further legal contact. I am of sound mind, in a safe environment, and not under any pressure. I have engaged local legal counsel. Any more attempts to contact me pretending to care will be seen as harassment. Sincerely, Martha Harlow. I signed it with confidence and dropped it off at the post office the next morning. That was the final severance. I wasn't angry anymore. By the way, dear viewer, if you're enjoying this video, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Just wrapped up another shift. At the cafe, Heather slipped me an extra one without even asking. You're the only one who shows up early, she said. The others seemed to think just being present deserves a medal. Arthur strolled in just before noon, looking worn out but stable. We grabbed a spot by the window, opting for tea over coffee. You seem lighter, he remarked. I wrote a letter, my final one, I replied. He didn't pry about its contents, just gave a knowing nod. Funny how it's often the unsent ones that change everything, he mused, or the ones you send without expecting a reply. When I got home that evening, I paused in the doorway, taking in the familiar scent of garlic mingling with dryer sheets. Franklin, our cat, wandered over and gave my shin a nudge. Joyce glanced up from the kitchen. I made pasta. Hope you're hungry. And I was hungry, liberated, fearless, all the things I hadn't felt in ages. Joyce turned 70 on a Tuesday. She didn't want a big celebration. People start singing, and I just want to bolt, she confessed. Still, I baked a chocolate cake, placing it on the kitchen table with 2 candles and a card that read, You're not old. You're vintage. She chuckled at the sight. I guess I can deal with cake, she said, cutting herself a generous slice. That night, we sat on the porch, cake balanced on paper plates, wrapped in quilts, watching the moon rise. A quiet kind of celebration, the kind I never thought mattered, but they do. Maybe even more than the noisy ones. Joyce remarked, You've been with us almost 2 months now. I know. By the way, dear viewer, if you're enjoying this video, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Are you planning to stay? I asked, glancing at the quiet, softly lit street outside. Yes, she replied with a nod. Great. The house feels strange without someone yelling at the cat. We clinked our mugs of lukewarm tea. Franklin yawned, curling up even tighter between our feet. The next morning, Heather handed me an envelope. Curious, I asked, What's this? She pointed to my name on it. No return address, just a local postmark. After my shift, sitting on the back step behind the cafe, I opened it. Inside, a letter with large, careful handwriting. Grandma, I'm coming to Portland. I want to see you. I'm not bringing anyone. I just want to talk. I'm staying at the Red Fern Motel on Maple, room 12. If you want to come by, I'll be there Friday and Saturday. If not, I'll understand. Kieran. The letter carried no guilt or pressure, just a grown man reaching out quietly. Before I knew it, Friday morning arrived. I dressed with care, not for him, but for myself. Navy coat, clean shirt, and lipstick, the color of dried cherries. I didn't mention my plans to Joyce. She didn't ask. The Red Fern was modest, clean, but showing its age. I knocked once. He opened the door as if he'd been standing there, waiting. Taller than I remembered, scruffy jaw, tired eyes, but that same gentle look. Hi, Grandma. Hi, sweetheart. He didn't rush to hug me. Instead, he stepped back, inviting me in. The room smelled of takeout and hotel soap. The bed was made, yet the desk was a mess of books. By the way, dear viewer, if you're enjoying this video, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. He came with books in hand. Says a lot, right? We sat with a bit of distance, sensing we needed to ease into the warmth of the moment. I wasn't sure you'd show up, he said. Neither was I replied. He nodded, adding, I read the letter you never sent. Left it in the drawer where Mom found it. Of course she did. I'm glad you didn't send it, he admitted, but even more glad you wrote it. We drifted through topics, touching on his job, my life in Portland, and the taste of freedom when no one's watching. I think about you often, he confessed. You were the one person who made me feel complete just by being there. I reached out, holding his hand. You've always been enough, and you still are. No tears, just deeper breaths. We didn't bother with questions about returning or staying. We both knew better. Before parting, he passed me a small, wrapped bundle. Inside was a book of poems. I've underlined the ones that reminded me of you, he said. That night, I read each poem by the glow of a lamp, letting one line linger in my mind. There are women who rise not from fire, but from forgetting who told them they couldn't. I fell asleep with the window slightly open, the wind whispering like a second chance. The next morning, I strolled to the cafe, same coat, same steps. But something felt different. Not outside, but within. Kieran headed back to the motel after breakfast. His train was set to depart at noon. We'd love to hear from you. Let us know in the comments what city you're watching from. We didn't say goodbye. Instead, we just held each other in a long, quiet hug right there in the lobby, with the hum of a vacuum cleaner from the next room as our background music. He held on like boys do when they're unsure if it's still okay to do so. Take care of yourself, I whispered. You too, he replied. Finally. Over at the cafe, Heather tossed me a brand new apron. Snagged this from the clearance bin and thought of you, she said. It was a deep green with the words, "Not your grandma's kitchen," embroidered on it. I burst out laughing, full and hearty. Arthur, sitting in his usual booth, glanced up and gave me a mug salute. After my shift, I strolled home, savoring the soft air beneath an overcast sky. Franklin met me at the door, already grumbling because I was late for his 2 p.m. stretch and yowl session. Joyce was in the kitchen, cooking up something aromatic. You've got that smug look again, she remarked. New apron, I replied. I approve, she nodded. We ate in that comfortable silence people share when there's nothing more to say, just being present, just at ease. Later that night, I sat on the porch with a pen and a blank card. I wrote, Dear me, you spent so long waiting for a savior. You forgot you always held the key. They didn't slip away. You let go, and in turn, they did too. Now, look at the life that's unfolded. Well done. Love, me. I tucked it inside my dresser drawer, behind old recipe cards, just in case I need reminding someday. So that's my tale. I wasn't left behind. I was set free. And I didn't just patch up my life. I crafted something entirely new. By the way, dear viewer, if you're enjoying this video, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. If this message reached you at just the right time, don't sit around waiting for the perfect signal. Be your own signal, your own voice breaking the quiet, your own decision to leave the comfort of the airport lounge. And when you take that step, come back and share your journey with me. I'll be right here. If this story touched your heart, pass it on, drop a comment, remind someone that it's never too late to prioritize yourself. By the way, dear viewer, if you're enjoying this video, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel